Hello, lovelies. I wanted to share with you a little practice, one that I really find super helpful. You know, I think when it comes to the realm of emotions, a lot of us really struggle with the ones that are challenging because we want them to go away. And they are actually a part of this life. If you are new to me, if you're new to my work, I'm Jen Plotnikoff. I'm an intuitive, somatic educator, biodynamic cranial psychotherapist. And so a lot of the work I've been doing lately for you all have been the readings, but I thought I would do a little, just share with you a little example of a practice that I use a lot. So the practice that I wanted to share with you is something that I find really helpful, and this is just kind of a small. It's the tip of a really huge iceberg. But I wanted to just offer this because I think it's really important. It's not just helpful, but it's something that, particularly in the spiritual community, something that I see quite often is a lack of embodiment. And embodiment really is kind of our magic carpet ride to not just moving through the emotional realm, but it's also a really powerful part of our intuition, our capacity to create, our capacity to connect and be connected. And it's also it allows us to be able to really expand on our capacity to be with emotion and move through emotion. And one of the reasons why that's so more important is that it not just allows us to be able to work with the challenging emotions, but it also allows us to really fully receive all of the things that we want, all of the emotions that we want more of. So, they are part of this dichotomy, right? They are in relationship to each other. And just like the movie, if you haven't seen the Pixar movie Inside Out, it's a sweet example, but it's very much true in that we can't have, and one thing obviously this movie simplifies, but we actually can't have one without the other. So we actually can't really truly experience happiness in its full colorful capacities and layers and subtleties and extremities without knowing all of the layers and extremities and subtleties of sadness, for example. And a lot of, one of the things, the gifts of this practice as well, and I will share it in a moment, but it is that one of the things that I've learned is that it's not as simple as emotions are never as simple as we understand them to be and even really feel them to be. So as we actually explore our capacity to be able to move and emote, and I always think about like emotion is like energy and emotion. And often when we feel really stuck or in challenge with emotions, it's because we're not really willing to move the energy, or we want to control and manipulate the energy, and that's not really how it works. So that's the other thing that working with our body, working with embodiment really helps to teach us is to listen more, to not control and to not drive, but really be the observer. So the other thing I'm just going to say with all of this as a caveat is a few things. One is this is a small piece of a much larger kind of practice and understanding. So if this is something that's curious to you and you want to explore deeper, feel free to reach out. I will be doing some deep diving around this kind of teaching this spring. And the other thing that's really important to remember is this is a really different paradigm that we are used to working in. So that means all of the more kind of like masculine quality paradigm, which is basically how most of our culture and our world runs, not in a negative way, but that is very much the driving force of what we're used to doing. So that means focus, that means direction, that means production, that means there's a point to something. All of those linear kinds of things are what I refer to as being the masculine energy. That is not what this practice is. So I really invite you to, if you need to, maybe set a meditation timer, give yourself permission to really fully explore without point or purpose or control or results. This is not a results-oriented practice. It is very much a somatic exploration. With that said, it is very helpful to be in a space and remind ourselves of being in a beginner's mind and of being in a curious state of being. Okay, so all that said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift, and you probably, because of the lighting, you're not going to see a lot of details in my face. It doesn't really matter. What I just want to offer you is part of this little practice. So it's really simple. When I'm feeling yucky, and I don't know why, one of the first pieces is just to recognize that I feel kind of gross, and maybe I feel frustrated, maybe I feel lethargic, maybe I just feel really like heavy, and I don't really know what to do with it. The very first thing that's important is just to acknowledge that that's actually a normal and a natural and an okay state, and to just let that be part of my experience. So that's really important. That's step number one, is just to acknowledge where I'm at, acknowledge where you're at, acknowledge what you're feeling. The second piece is this is basically kind of like I kind of move through it. Maybe it's dancing it out, but I really want to be specific because, again, this is not about me trying to take a state that I don't like and turn it into a state that I like better, that's more acceptable. That's really, really, really important to differentiate here. This is not about trying to change my state. It's actually more about fully acknowledging the state and let it tell me the story that it needs to tell me. So this is about when, you have imagine you're with a small child who was really frustrated and upset and they don't know why. Maybe they just need to be heard. And this is you really sitting with that child and without any judgment, without any direction, just sitting down and letting them rant, letting them be witnessed, letting them be heard, letting them truly, fully be seen. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to have any kind of logic. And this is really important because this is actually what allows the practice to unfold and the emotion to move. It's not intentional. It's just a natural consequence of when we really fully accept our present state. So, what I do is I check in with myself, and this is actually really, I think I'm inspired to do this too because this week I am PMSing, and I often find that this time of month for me is actually really powerful at moving energy, and it's really, really powerful. I get a lot of downloads, but if I actually try to resist my grumpiness, I actually block my all of the information that wants to come, and I actually block the creative energy, and I block the things that want to move through me. And what I realized is, you can even see it in my body a little bit, like the more I actually really acknowledge whatever is stirring up in my soul, in my body, in my being, it's actually doing the work. So it makes this process actually part of my wholeness, rather than this, 4 or 5 days or a week of grumpiness that I just have to tolerate and manage. Um, yeah, okay. I think that's all that I'm going to say around that. So the first part is attitude, full acceptance, and curiosity. All states are perfect, are intelligent, and are wonderful. All thoughts are welcome. That is important. Second piece, I find some music that matches my current mood. So if my mood is sad or melancholic, I will find a sad piece of music. If my state of being is like tender and emotional, I will find a piece of music that really matches. If that current state feels a little bit like saucy and vixen-like, or dark, mysterious, if it feels like rageful and angry, I will try to find a piece of music that matches that. Sometimes with the anger stuff, actually, I won't even use music. If it's a lot of anger and frustration, sometimes I'll just go and do some yelling and screaming out into my bed, into my pillows. I'll throw myself a wonderful full force tantrum. So if you are working through different things and you're not sure, I would actually suggest you to try actually the temper tantrum if this other piece isn't working. But these are a little bit more what I'll show you, just because of my current mood state right now. It's a little bit more on the kind of like tender, kind of melancholic, like really tender is the word. I've been working through a lot of like ancestral stuff, and feeling a lot of like heart tender sadness. So we'll see what music I find, but I'm going to give you just a little taste of what I mean. And so as I start to listen to that music, whatever it is, I let my body start to respond. And I ask my sadness, I ask my tenderness, like, how can I actually physically manifest this thing that I'm feeling inside of my body? What would it look like as a movement, as a gesture, as an expression? So this isn't necessarily like, if you're like, oh my God, I don't know how to dance. This is like not about dance. This is actually about, if I were to physically show and demonstrate this feeling that I have in my body, if I were to let it be an expression or a movement or a gesture, even if it's like a facial expression, what would that look like? And start there. Let that lead the way. So let each gesture move onto the next gesture. Let yourself be actually moved by gesture, by the inner feeling. It can be really subtle. Sometimes this is a practice where I just lay on the floor and really, really subtle movement. And sometimes it's a full-on like sad ballet. So I'm feeling a little bit of more movement. So I'm going to show you that for a few moments, just to kind of give you an idea of what that might look and feel like. And I also just invite you to notice what you feel in your body as you watch my own mini example. All right, so let's get into it. So just one more thing as well that I forgot to say earlier, so I'll just edit it in. You will notice that in the first part of the clip, or you might notice that when I'm actually doing the somatic movement example, I take off my glasses, and I actually purposely wore glasses so that I could take them off for this video. I invite you that if you wear glasses, that you do take them off for the movement, for any somatic movement that actually is really important, even if you, whatever somatic movement you do, whether you're a yoga practitioner, any other kind of movement where you're paying attention to your body. And the reason for that is because our eyes receive information that tells us where our body is in space. And glasses change how we receive that information. So one practice, and I'm not saying glasses are bad. If you have contacts, it's fine because they're in your eyes. But what happens is, because of the nature of glasses themselves, they do actually change the way our eyes look and how our eyes are actually taking in information, and that can actually really affect our experience of how we take in information somatically. So, in short, take off your glasses before you do this exercise. All right. Now back to the rest of it. So I am realizing I initially didn't film a conclusion for your experience after watching that practice. And after watching it again as well, I realized that I think we need to talk about it. So after watching the 3-minute clip of the practice, and of course, this is just a small snapshot. However, I'm just wanting to invite you as you watch that, just to notice what was happening in your own body, just to notice what was going on for you, how you received that, and just sit with that. That's some interesting information right there. I also invite you to kind of play with this however it is you want to play with this. If you would like some help with playing with this, if you want to kind of explore more and you're not really sure where to start, or if you're feeling kind of stuck but you want to dive, I would be happy to support you. So, yeah. Just notice what that brings up. Notice what it doesn't bring up. And I also just wanted to invite you in your own practice with this to really make sure that when you're finished, whether that's a song or an hour or half an hour or however long you need, again, I suggest to give yourself just a container of the time that you have, and give yourself a container of some time and spaciousness to play. And after that container is closed, just to kind of close it, to just nourish yourself, drink some water, eat some food. You should be, normally I feel pretty grounded after letting the energy move through you, but if we are not used to moving energy, if we are not used to kind of being in our bodies, it can also bring up lots of stuff. So I also wanted to acknowledge that this can also kind of stir up a lot of unprocessed stuff. And if you do need some support with the processing of that stuff, I definitely highly recommend seeking out support, whether that's even reaching out to me, reaching out to like a practitioner if you already work with a practitioner, making sure that you have the support you need to move through things. This is a really simple practice, but it's really potent, which is why I wanted to share it. And it can be really gentle, but it can also bring up and stir up a lot of stuff. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and acknowledge that if you're not sure what to do with the stuff that's coming up, rather than just stuff it back down from where it came from, which is not the intention of this practice, is to actually get some more support in how to actually explore what's coming up, so that you can explore it in a way that feels good and feels supported and feels more productive. All right, my dears. If you enjoyed this, feel free to share it with those you think that would benefit it. I will leave my contact information below if you'd like to get a hold of me in the description. Sending you lots and lots of love. Mwah.